What happens when the world's most powerful pop star walks onto a stage expecting applause and ends up in a silent standoff with a woman who wasn't even supposed to be there? What happens when that woman tries to flirt? Yes, flirt with the pop star's NFL boyfriend, backstage, off camera, under the illusion that no one would ever find out. And what happens when the pop star finds out anyway and chooses to respond live on national television in front of millions? The answer? A single moment of mic drop fury that tore through Hollywood like a wildfire, burned through royal fantasy, and left one woman humiliated in a way she never imagined. That moment didn't happen in a courtroom. It didn't happen at a palace. It didn't happen in a carefully edited Netflix docuseries or behind closed doors at some Hollywood brunch. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. It happened under the blinding stage lights of The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, and it changed everything. Let's rewind the tape, shall we? Because before the viral tweet threads, before the TikToks with 3.2 million views, before the think pieces on feminism gone wrong or celebrity takedowns, this story began as a soft, ordinary Wednesday night. Studio audience settling in, monologue jokes being rewritten. A couple, Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, getting mic'd up backstage for a casual joint appearance. Just another star-studded segment. Until she arrived. Until Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, walked into the CBS building like she owned it. Wearing white, lipstick sharp, smile sharper, and without a single word to producers, crew, or Colbert himself, she made it known she intended to be seen. Not as a guest, not as a royal, but as a woman with unfinished business. Because according to multiple backstage witnesses, Meghan wasn't there just to say hello. She was there to reclaim relevance. She was there to flirt with Taylor Swift's boyfriend. And somehow, in the middle of it all, she forgot who Taylor Swift really was. Now pause for a second. Ask yourself, what kind of person walks into a taping of The Late Show, uninvited, and thinks they can hijack the moment? Better yet, what kind of person believes that will end well? Meghan Markle, that's who. She believed her status as a former royal, a victim in 1,000 headlines, and a self-declared feminist icon would shield her from consequences. She thought she could charm her way past security, past awkward glances, past the smirks of the staff, who definitely knew something she didn't. And for a moment, just a flicker, she actually managed to believe it was working. But what Meghan didn't know is that Taylor already knew everything. From the moment she walked into the building, someone had tipped her off. And what happened next would go down as one of the most spectacular public humiliations ever witnessed on live television. The best part? It wasn't messy. It wasn't a screaming match. There were no thrown drinks or slammed doors. Just words. Just one woman, effortlessly destroying another, with a sentence so clean, so calculated, so ice-cold that even Colbert himself didn't know how to recover. But we'll get to that. Because before that sentence dropped, before the gasps and the tweets and the backstage breakdown, there were layers to peel back, motives to uncover, and secrets Meghan never thought would come out. We'll tell you why Taylor was furious long before Meghan even walked into that green room. We'll tell you how Travis Kelce reacted when Meghan allegedly cornered him backstage, whispering compliments with a hand on his arm, thinking no one was watching. We'll show you the receipts, texts, insider whispers, hot mic footage, and industry fallout that took this moment from petty feud to full-scale Hollywood warfare. But here's the real kicker. This wasn't just about a man. It wasn't even about a moment. It was about something far deeper. A clash of two women who represent opposite ends of the fame spectrum. One, Taylor Swift, self-made, relentlessly scrutinized, and still standing tall after every betrayal, every ex, every media storm. The other, Meghan Markle, catapulted into global fame via marriage, now clinging to a relevance that seems to slip further away with each Netflix flop, each awkward public appearance, each headline about financial strains and desperate brand moves. Taylor has fought for her platform. Meghan has fought for her spotlight. But there's a difference. Taylor's power comes from loyalty, fans who grew with her, critics she converted, songs that echo across generations. Meghan's power? Well, that's been fading. And that fading spotlight can make a person do desperate things, even show up uninvited, even flirt with someone else's man. Even try to provoke the one woman who's never been afraid to turn pain into lyrics, and lyrics into revenge. And revenge, ladies and gentlemen, has a rhythm, a tempo, a perfectly timed delivery. And Taylor Swift? She's a master of the setup and the kill shot. Now let's talk about why this moment matters right now. It's not just about celebrity beef. It's not just gossip. It's about the growing fatigue audiences feel when powerful people cry victim to cover bad behavior. It's about performative feminism, the kind that uses empowerment as a shield while undermining other women behind the scenes. It's about the slow collapse of the Meghan Markle brand and the rise of women who are tired of being polite. We live in an era where image is everything, where a carefully curated narrative can win you millions in Netflix deals, podcast sponsorships, and magazine covers. But what happens when the mask slips? When someone as sharp and beloved as Taylor Swift refuses to play along? What happens when the truth walks onto the stage in a red lip, high ponytail, and a voice that never misses? You get a moment that breaks the internet. You get headlines like, "Swiftly shut down. Taylor blasts Meghan on live TV. Mic drop moment. Swift destroys Markle's flirt attempt with Travis Kelce. The Duchess versus the pop queen, and only one survives the show." But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Because before the headlines, before the memes, before the Spotify playlists with the man climbing again for suspicious reasons, there was a room, a studio, a chair, Taylor on one side, Travis in the middle, and Meghan awkwardly waiting in the wings, thinking she had control of the story. But she didn't. Because what Meghan didn't realize is that Taylor had planned everything, down to the moment she would strike. And that strike? Oh, it wasn't loud. It was quiet, devastatingly quiet. The kind of moment where no one laughs, where the audience freezes, where the camera lingers, because even it doesn't know what to do. The kind of moment that becomes legend. Are you ready to hear what really happened? The real story, the unfiltered one. Because you've heard the headlines. You've seen the clips. But you haven't heard what Travis whispered when the cameras cut. You haven't heard what Meghan screamed backstage. You haven't seen the text that warned Taylor hours before the show even began. And once you hear what went down in that green room, you'll understand why Taylor didn't just humiliate Meghan. She ended her. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. What came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. But to understand the explosion, you have to rewind the clock to the quiet moments just before impact. It always starts that way, doesn't it? Not with chaos, but with calm. The kind of calm that almost feels staged, like the universe is holding its breath. Taylor Swift, perched in her dressing room, legs crossed, rehearsing her lines with that signature laser focus. Travis Kelce, in a different hallway, scrolling through his phone, cracking jokes with stagehands, flashing that grin that America just can't get enough of. Two icons, two careers peaking at the same time, two people who somehow, against all industry logic, make sense together. And yet, lurking just beneath the surface of that picture-perfect moment was a ticking time bomb. Her name? Meghan Markle. And before the explosion came the setup. A setup so subtle, so sinister in hindsight, it almost seemed accidental. But was it? Let's start at the beginning. The Late Show with Stephen Colbert had planned a light segment. Nothing too serious. A power couple guest spot featuring Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, Hollywood's newest obsession. The idea was to let them banter, play a silly game, maybe plug Taylor's tour and Travis's podcast, and wrap up with a cheeky musical moment. Harmless. Endearing. PR gold. What they didn't expect. A wild card. A woman who wasn't on the call sheet, whose name hadn't crossed the assistant producer's lips once during the pre-production meetings. A woman who hadn't RSVP'd, hadn't been invited, and yet somehow found her way inside the building anyway. You already know who. But let's not jump ahead just yet, because the stage was already heating up long before Meghan Markle walked in. Let's talk about Taylor and Travis. Because believe it or not, this wasn't just any taping for them. This was their first joint late-night appearance. Think about that. Two of the most talked-about people on the planet, the pop queen and the Super Bowl champ, finally stepping onto the same stage. Not as individuals, not as guests on separate nights, but as a couple, together. And everyone knew it would be huge. The press was already salivating. America's sweetheart and the NFL's golden boy. Taylor and Travis, the new it couple. Swiftie Kingdom meets the Chiefs dynasty. It wasn't just buzz, it was strategy. Taylor's team had worked for weeks to make sure this appearance hit just right. Coordinated outfits, carefully rehearsed talking points. Social media embargoes lifted just minutes before airtime to boost trending momentum. Everything was locked in. Everything was polished. Everything was perfect. Until it wasn't. Because, behind the scenes, a whisper had already started circulating. From the makeup chair to the wardrobe department, murmurs of confusion began to bubble up. She's here. Wait, what do you mean she's in the green room? She's not supposed to be on this episode. She wasn't booked. No, not Taylor. Her. A stylist from the wardrobe team confirmed it first. Meghan Markle. In the building. Unscheduled. Alone. And wearing a dress that didn't whisper coincidence. It screamed intention. White. Silk. Cut just low enough to raise eyebrows. Not red carpet elegant. Not princess polished. But something else. Something curated. Something designed to stand out next to Travis Kelce in a hallway photo that might accidentally leak. Do you see where this is going? Because Taylor did. And the moment she heard the name Meghan, she didn't flinch. She didn't panic. She smiled. That small, knowing smile Swifties recognize from her darkest lyrics. The smile that usually precedes a verse like, "You should have known I'd catch the scent of sabotage." But hold on. How did Meghan end up there? Great question. According to a leaked message from someone on the production team, an anonymous Reddit AMA that's since been taken down, Meghan had reached out days earlier, suggesting she could drop by the studio for a casual meetup with Colbert. Said she wanted to reconnect after their last interview. Totally informal, she claimed. No pressure. But even back then, the message felt off. Producers reportedly told her, "This week's taping is locked, but we'll keep you in mind for the next one." You know, the polite version of thanks, but no thanks. And yet, here she was anyway, showing up early, talking to crew like she knew them, flashing smiles, making jokes, asking questions like, "Oh, is Taylor here yet?" But this wasn't a woman just dropping by. This was a woman hunting for proximity. And the target? Not Colbert. Not even the cameras. Travis Kelce. Let that sink in. Because according to one hair and makeup artist backstage, we'll call her C, Meghan made multiple inquiries within the first 20 minutes of arriving. Where does Travis usually hang out before he tapes? Do guests mingle at all before the show starts? Do they use separate green rooms, or one for couples? At first, it felt harmless, maybe even charming. But as C told it, something about the way she asked, like she was trying to memorize the building's layout. And then it happened. The moment that flipped the switch, Travis, walking down the hallway toward his dressing room, bumped, quite literally, into Meghan, allegedly by accident. Except she was standing in a spot guests never use. She had no pass, no handler, just a dazzling smile and a casual, "Oh, didn't expect to see you here." Sound rehearsed? It was. Witnesses say she touched his arm, laughed just a little too hard, complimented his cologne. And then, with just enough breathiness to leave a mark, she said, "Taylor's a lucky girl. I always said athletes make the best partners, especially the ones with a protective streak." Protective? Of what exactly? Of Taylor? Or of the woman standing too close? And more importantly, who was watching? You guessed it. Taylor. From her dressing room mirror, watching the hallway through the reflection of a slightly cracked door, her stylist holding a brush midair, frozen. She heard every word. And that's when she decided. This wouldn't be ignored. This wouldn't be dismissed. This would be handled. But not with screaming. Not with drama. With precision. Because here's the thing about Taylor Swift. She doesn't raise her voice. She raises the stakes. And with the taping just 30 minutes away, the most powerful woman in music decided to take the stage and rewrite the script, one calculated sentence at a time. But here's what Meghan didn't know. She wasn't the only one playing games that night, because someone else had texted Taylor just hours before the taping. And what that message said would change everything. What if the most dangerous move of the night wasn't the line on stage, but the entrance no one was supposed to notice? Because that's where this chapter begins, with a door opening quietly. Too quietly. The kind of entrance meant to look accidental, effortless, unthreatening. The kind that says, "I'm just passing through," while every step is calculated, every glance measured, every breath rehearsed. That was Meghan Markle's entrance into the CBS building. And depending on who you ask, it was either harmless glamour or pure sabotage. So let me ask you something right now. Have you ever seen someone walk into a room and instantly bend the energy around them? Not with noise, not with shouting, but with posture, with timing, with the unspoken understanding that they expect to be noticed. That's how Meghan arrived. Not rushed, not flustered, calm, composed, smiling like she belonged there. Too comfortable for someone who wasn't on the guest list. Inside the lobby, security hesitated, not because they recognized her credentials, but because they recognized her face. That's the strange currency of celebrity. You don't need a badge when people assume you must have one. A pause, a glance, a quiet, "She's with us." And suddenly, the doors opened. That's how easy it was. Now picture the contrast. Taylor Swift had arrived earlier, discreetly. Hoodie, sunglasses, head down, surrounded by a team that moved like a well-trained unit. No wandering. No wandering eyes. No unnecessary interactions. Travis Kelce? Same thing. Jokes with staff. Friendly. Approachable. But grounded. A man who knew exactly why he was there. Meghan? She floated. That's the word multiple crew members later used. She floated from station to station. Never staying too long. Never committing to a single conversation. Laughing here. Nodding there. Complimenting someone's jacket. Asking someone's name, and then not using it. Always scanning. Always aware. Always looking past the person in front of her. Looking for someone else. And here's where the contradictions start piling up. Because according to one assistant producer, Meghan told them she was just popping by to say hello to Stephen Colbert. No appearance. No mic. No segment. Just a friendly visit. Sounds innocent, right? Except Colbert wasn't told. Except no meeting was scheduled. Except she walked straight past the Colbert green room and toward the hallway where Taylor and Travis were assigned. Coincidence? Maybe. But then came the outfit. Let's talk about the outfit. Because clothing at events like this is never accidental. Not at this level. Not with someone this media savvy. Meghan wore white. Not cream. Not ivory. White. A color that photographs loudly under studio lights. A color that pops against darker backdrops. A color historically associated with innocence, yet often used strategically to pull focus. Ask any stylist. White is not neutral. White is dominant. And the cut? Not formal. Not casual. Something in between. Low enough to catch attention. Structured enough to look deliberate. Soft enough to appear effortless. The message was subtle but unmistakable. I'm not here to fade into the background. And if you think that didn't register with Taylor Swift immediately, you don't understand Taylor Swift. Taylor notices everything. Every detail. Every shift in tone. Every unspoken challenge. Because this wasn't Taylor's first rodeo. She's been the other woman in tabloid narratives. She's been painted as insecure, jealous, dramatic. She's had her relationships dissected like crime scenes. She learned a long time ago that silence can be mistaken for weakness, and reaction can be weaponized. So when she heard Meghan was in the building, Taylor didn't storm out. She waited and watched. Meanwhile, Meghan kept moving. She stopped by wardrobe. She chatted with makeup. She asked a stagehand how long until rehearsal. Not because she needed the information. Because she wanted to be seen asking. Because proximity is power in Hollywood. And Meghan knows that better than most. But here's the thing. The building wasn't reacting the way she expected. There were smiles, but they were tight. Nods, but no invitations. Pleasantries, but no warmth. And that's when Meghan shifted tactics. She started asking about Travis. Is he already mic'd? Do athletes get nervous before live tapings? He seems like such a natural on camera. At first, it sounded complimentary. But then it became pointed. And that's when the whispers began. One PA allegedly leaned to another and said, "Why is she asking so much about him?" Another replied, "She knows Taylor's here, right?" And someone else said something that would later come back to haunt the entire night. "She's testing boundaries." Testing. That's the word. Because that's exactly what it looked like. Not a bold move. Not an obvious play. A test. A gauge of what she could get away with. How close she could stand. How long she could linger. Whether anyone would stop her. And no one did. Not yet. Because here's the uncomfortable truth about Hollywood. People don't intervene until something breaks. They wait. They watch. They hope it resolves itself. And in that waiting, lines get crossed. Now let's rewind to that hallway moment again. Because the more people talked about it afterward, the clearer it became that it wasn't random. Travis didn't just bump into Meghan. She positioned herself there. That hallway was off-limits to non-guests. She had no reason to be standing there. Except one. And when Travis appeared, she didn't step aside. She stepped forward, smiled, and said his name like they were old friends. Have you ever seen someone use familiarity as a weapon? Because that's what this was. Witnesses later described the exchange as brief, but loaded. The arm touch, the laugh, the comment about protection, and then the pause. That slight pause where she waited for a reaction, a smile, an invitation, anything. Travis didn't give it. He smiled politely, stepped back, kept it moving, which, according to those watching, visibly irritated her, because she wasn't used to being dismissed. And that's when she did something that would set the entire night on fire. She glanced, very deliberately, toward Taylor's dressing room door. She knew Taylor was there. She wanted Taylor to see. And Taylor did. Every second of it. Now ask yourself this. If you were Meghan Markle, someone whose brand has been built on optics, narratives, and controlled storytelling, would you really risk a misstep like that unless you thought you could spin it? Unless you believed you could frame it later as innocent, friendly, misunderstood? That's where this stops being about flirting and starts being about manipulation. Because according to industry insiders, Meghan had already planted seeds. Earlier that day, a UK tabloid ran a soft piece hinting she might be crossing paths with new Hollywood friends in New York. Another entertainment blog teased a surprise celebrity interaction involving Meghan that week. Nothing concrete, just enough to create expectation, just enough to justify her presence later. And when you connect those dots, the entrance stops looking accidental. It starts looking strategic. But here's where the plan cracked. Taylor Swift doesn't play reactionary games. She plays long games. While Meghan was floating through the building, Taylor was quietly getting informed. A producer slipped her a note. A friend texted her. Someone on her team confirmed what she already suspected. Meghan wasn't booked. She wasn't invited. She was inserting herself. And suddenly, everything shifted. The flirtation wasn't harmless. The outfit wasn't coincidence. The entrance wasn't innocent. It was a challenge. And Taylor accepted it. But not in the way Meghan expected. Because instead of confronting her backstage, where things could be twisted, denied, reframed, Taylor waited. She waited for the cameras. She waited for the moment when the power dynamic would flip. She waited for the stage. Because that's where Taylor Swift is untouchable. And that's where Meghan Markle has no control. But before we get there, there's one more piece you need to understand. A message, sent to Taylor hours earlier. A message that revealed Meghan's intentions with chilling clarity. A message that turned annoyance into resolve. Because once Taylor read it, she didn't just plan to defend herself. She planned to expose the game. And when you hear what that message said, you'll understand why this night was never going to end quietly. Not for Meghan. Not for anyone. Because the setup was complete. And the trap? Already sprung. But the real shock was still ahead. And no one in that building, least of all Meghan Markle, was ready for what came next. What if the whole thing was never spontaneous? What if the moment that shook the entertainment world, the viral takedown, the live mic humiliation, the icy composure of Taylor Swift, was an instinct? What if it was planned? Because that's where this chapter takes us. Back, hours before the lights, before the cameras, before Meghan Markle ever stepped foot inside the CBS building. Because long before the audience gasped, before Twitter exploded, Taylor already knew. Someone warned her. And once she received that message, the wheels of something much colder, much sharper, began to turn. Let's rewind. It's 11:07 a.m. Taylor Swift is in her Manhattan apartment, rehearsing final talking points with her team. Her phone is face down. Her assistant, Kate, is checking her schedule for the day. Nothing unusual. Then the buzz. A text. But not from a publicist. Not from her manager. Not even from Travis. It's from a friend. One of those rare, tight-lipped friends that don't leak, don't gossip, don't seek clout. Someone inside the industry. Someone with reach. The message is short. Heads up. Meghan's trying to crash Colbert taping tonight. Rumor is she's pulling something weird with Travis. Be ready. No emojis. No punctuation. Just a warning. A quiet flare shot into the sky. Now imagine reading that if you're Taylor Swift. Imagine knowing your boyfriend, your very public, very media-targeted boyfriend, is going to be backstage, relaxed, off guard. And someone with a history of manipulation, PR chaos, and weaponized victimhood might be looking to start something. Taylor doesn't panic. She doesn't even respond at first. Instead, she reads it again. Then again. Because there's something about that phrase, pulling something weird with Travis, that doesn't sit right. She's heard it before, versions of it. And suddenly, like a lock clicking open, pieces from the past begin sliding into place. Flashback. The Met Gala, 2 years prior. A brief, awkward interaction between Meghan and Taylor. Meghan had complimented her gown, twice. Once too many. Then she made a snide joke about writing a song about a breakup before it even happens. It was meant to be cute. But Taylor didn't laugh. Because beneath the charm was an edge. A dig. It didn't land then. But it hits now. Back to the present. Taylor puts her phone down. Quiet. Focused. Then she turns to Kate and says just one sentence. She's coming tonight. Kate blinks. Who? Meghan. Kate pauses. Why? Taylor shrugs. That's what we're going to find out. And just like that, her team shifts. Schedules get tightened. Her stylist is pulled in earlier. Her makeup team is told to stay flexible. One assistant is assigned to monitor hallway access at the studio. No joke. The mood changes. Not panicked. Not hostile. Prepared. Because here's something casual viewers never see. Taylor Swift is a strategist. A woman who has survived being slut-shamed at 20, villainized at 24, sued at 27, and outmaneuvered Kanye West's edited phone call at 30. She doesn't run from confrontation. She doesn't chase it either. She waits. And that's exactly what she's doing now. Waiting for the moment Meghan reveals her hand. 1:38 p.m. Another message. Different number. This one comes from someone working loosely in Meghan's orbit. Someone who used to assist her publicist. It's a screenshot from a conversation between two people discussing Meghan's last-minute surprise visit to CBS. And at the bottom of the image, a quote. She wants to remind people she's still in the room, especially while those two are pretending to be America's couple. Those two, meaning Taylor and Travis. Pretending. Taylor reads the message. Once. Then deletes it. Kate asks, what do we do? Taylor replies, nothing. Not yet. Because in Taylor's mind, the worst thing she could do right now is tip Meghan off. No team reaction. No PR warning. No passive-aggressive Instagram post. Silence. Because if Meghan is truly planning something, she'll think she has the upper hand. She'll think she's unnoticed. And that's the moment you catch someone red-handed. Not when they're defensive, but when they're bold. So Taylor heads to the studio exactly on time. Not early. Not late. She walks in with her team, cool as ever. And what she sees confirms everything. Meghan Markle, in white, by the hallway, charming the staff, scanning the room, and then locking eyes with Travis Kelce. Taylor doesn't say a word. Not yet. Because the final piece hasn't dropped. The final signal that this isn't just an accidental run-in. That it isn't just some coincidence. And it comes just 10 minutes before taping. A quiet voice near her dressing room door. One of the CBS crew. Nervous. Hesitant. Miss Swift? I thought you should know. Meghan's been asking a lot of questions about Travis. About when you'll be on stage. She asked if there's a chance she might bump into him in the hallway again. Her words. Taylor nods. Thank you. And inside her head, everything clicks into place. This wasn't random. This was premeditated. And so, Taylor makes a decision. She tells Kate to inform wardrobe she'll be wearing the sharper suit option. She tells her music director to scrap the planned outro gag and give her room to speak freely. She tells her stage manager, don't edit anything unless I tell you. Then she sends one text. To Travis. It's short. As usual. If she talks to you again, smile. Don't react. Let me handle it. And then she puts her phone away, walks toward the green room, and begins preparing for the moment she's been waiting for. The moment everyone will be talking about. But here's the catch. Even Taylor, calm, calculated, steel-nerved, wasn't ready for what Meghan would say just before the show. Words caught on a hot mic. Words she never thought would be heard. Words that would ignite the entire internet and leave even Stephen Colbert scrambling for damage control. Because confrontation is one thing. But Meghan? She was about to break the one rule Taylor Swift never forgives. Dragging other women down in front of a man. And what she said, it wasn't just petty. It was something else. And when you hear it, you'll understand why Taylor's response wasn't a clapback. It was an execution. How do you humiliate the most powerful woman in pop culture? You don't. You try. You set the stage. You slink around the edges. You plant seeds. You flirt with her man. You think the cameras will protect you. You think live TV means no one will dare react. But then, you forget who you're messing with. And that's exactly what happened the moment the red Live sign lit up above the stage doors at The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. Because this wasn't just a talk show anymore. This was an ambush. And Taylor Swift was ready. Let's take you into the studio. Imagine the mood. Chilly Manhattan night. Colbert's team buzzing, crew moving fast but steady. Audience ushered in, producers finalizing camera placements, last checks on mics, seats, stage lighting. The energy? Electric. Everyone knew this episode would trend. Taylor and Travis together? That's enough to break the internet on any day. Add in live audience reactions, flirty banter, maybe a new music tease. The crowd was on fire before the show even started. But backstage, a different energy was boiling. Meghan was still there, still dressed in white, still acting as if she had a reason to be. And according to 3 different eyewitness accounts, including one from a lighting tech who later spilled on Reddit, Meghan was pacing. Not nervous pacing, predatory pacing, like someone watching a chessboard. She'd already tried her first move, cornering Travis. She'd tried smiling at Taylor during makeup touch-ups, as if they were cordial. She even made a snarky little joke to a producer about the show becoming the Taylor and Travis wedding hour. It didn't land. No one laughed. But Meghan wasn't done. Because the next move was the boldest yet. She tried to get on stage. No, really. With 5 minutes to showtime, Meghan allegedly approached the floor manager and asked, casually, if there was time for her to pop in during the couple's interview segment. She claimed she had a fun anecdote about meeting Travis at a charity gala years ago, which, by the way, never happened. Security was immediately alerted. Producers were furious. Colbert's assistant told her kindly, but firmly, that the segment was locked. There was no room for walk-ons. But Meghan? She didn't back down. She reportedly said, "You know this'll blow up the internet. I'm giving you a moment here." That's the delusion. She thought she was the moment. But Taylor Swift was about to remind her who the real headline was. The taping begins. Stephen Colbert walks out. The audience cheers. His monologue is sharp, timely. He even throws in a jab about Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift threatening to dethrone Beyoncé as America's royal couple. The crowd roars. And backstage, Meghan winces. She's no longer being mentioned in the same breath as royalty. No more reverent nods to her Netflix empire or Duchess title. Just silence. Her relevance? Shrinking. And then the announcement comes. Please welcome Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. Explosion of applause. The two walk out hand in hand. Coordinated outfits. Calm smiles. The exact kind of image Meghan once chased. The effortless kind. Taylor is in full control. She sits, crosses her legs, looks Stephen in the eye, and the interview begins. Colbert opens with compliments. Biggest tour on earth, NFL MVP boyfriend. How do you two stay grounded? It's light, funny, smooth. Until minute 6, when Colbert jokes. I gotta ask, what's it like navigating so much attention? I mean, you've got paparazzi chasing you both. Meghan Markle's probably hiding in the rafters trying to steal your thunder. Laughter. Big laugh. Even Stephen seems shocked he said it. And somewhere offstage, Meghan goes still. Her expression? Frozen. Eyes wide. Hands clenched. She wasn't supposed to be a punchline. But she is now. Taylor chuckles, but doesn't bite. Not yet. Instead, she leans into Travis and whispers something inaudible. The crowd awes. The tension breaks. But behind the scenes, things are heating up. Because Meghan has now stepped closer to the curtain, allegedly asking a crew member, if he mentions me again, do I get to respond? Let that sink in. She thought she could jump into the show, live, because her name was dropped as a joke. Desperation doesn't announce itself. It leaks. But now, we're at minute 10. The crowd's relaxed. Taylor's sipping water. And then Colbert drops the follow-up question that flips the table. So Taylor, what's the biggest red flag when you're out in public as a couple? A pause. Taylor smiles. Then tilts her head and delivers the first slice. Probably when someone shows up where they weren't invited, wears white, and pretends it's their wedding. The audience gasps. Laughter erupts. Stephen blinks. Travis lets out an uncontrollable grin. Boom. The shot is fired. Meghan, now red-faced. Still watching. Still waiting. But that was just the opening swing. Because what came next wasn't scripted. Wasn't rehearsed. It was Taylor going rogue. Stephen tries to recover. Wow. Okay, that's vivid. So you've seen some weird stuff backstage. Taylor nods. Her tone? Even. Controlled. I've seen people crash events to make it about them. I've seen women flirt with men who are clearly taken. And I've seen them do it with a smile, like we won't notice. She pauses. Looks directly into the camera. We notice. Dead silence. The air gets heavy. And that's when the entire building felt it. The shift. The moment where Meghan went from mystery guest to target. Because this wasn't passive. This was war. And Taylor wasn't done. Colbert tries to joke it off. Sounds like someone made a royal mess. More laughter. But Taylor doesn't laugh this time. She nods once, looks Stephen dead in the eye, and says, "Some girls chase crowns. I chase character." Boom. The crowd loses it. Audible gasps. Shouts. A standing ovation moment. In the middle of an interview. Travis can barely keep a straight face. Colbert? Speechless. Offstage. Meghan turns. Storms down the hallway. Fuming. But what she doesn't know is that someone left her mic hot. And as she passes the sound booth, she mutters, "That bitch is gonna regret that." Caught. On tape. And someone. Hit record. Which means the world's about to hear it. Because backstage mics might be quiet. But in Hollywood, nothing stays silent for long. And as that recording begins making its way to the press, Taylor's team already knew. Because the takedown wasn't complete yet. But Taylor had just gone nuclear. And the next move would be backstage, where the cameras couldn't protect anyone. What does it take to silence an audience? Not just quiet them. Not just hush the noise. I mean that rare, eerie silence. The kind that sucks the air out of the room. The kind of silence where everyone stops breathing at the same time. Where even the lights feel too loud. Where cameras freeze mid-pan. Not because the director yelled cut, but because they're stunned. It takes 5 words. And on that stage, under a storm of studio lights, with Stephen Colbert blinking like he couldn't believe what he just heard, and Travis Kelce frozen mid-smile, Taylor Swift said all 5. Some girls chase crowns. I chase character. Those 5 words exploded. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't a lyric. It was a precision-guided missile, fired from a velvet glove. And make no mistake, it landed. Because behind that line was years of subtext. Of gossip. Of tension. Of headlines. Of 2 women circling each other on the Hollywood chessboard, pretending they didn't notice one another, until one of them made the mistake of moving too close to the other's king. And Taylor? Taylor doesn't bluff. She annihilates. Let's break down what happened in the seconds that followed. The crowd erupted, yes, but not with wild laughter. Not immediately. First came the gasp. The full-body flinch from the audience. That subtle panic people feel when they realize they've just witnessed something they're not supposed to see. And then, release. Laughter. Applause. Cheering. Like a dam breaking. People weren't just reacting. They were releasing something they didn't know they'd been holding in. Because that line wasn't just for Meghan. It was for everybody. Every Hollywood climber. Every tabloid manipulator. Every woman who pretends to empower while plotting against the one ahead of her. But let's not get poetic just yet. Because while the audience was laughing, clapping, living for the moment, backstage, all hell broke loose. Let's cut to the green room hallway. Meghan Markle, mid-stride. Furious. Her heels clicking like gunshots. Hair slightly disheveled from pacing. That tight smile long gone. And then, hot mic moment. You remember, right? That bitch is gonna regret that. 6 words. 6 career-altering words. Because here's the problem with walking around a live set like it's your personal playground. Someone's always listening. The CBS building is wired tighter than Buckingham Palace. Boom mics, lapel mics, directional mics, they're everywhere. Even the hallway cameras run hot during tapings, just in case a producer wants extra B-roll. So when Meghan hissed those 6 words, they got picked up, amplified, recorded, and within 20 minutes, they were already bouncing from phone to phone among staffers. And someone, God bless them, pressed record. Not because they wanted to start drama, because they wanted receipts. Because in this town, denial is a currency. And Meghan Markle? She spent a lot of it. Now back to the stage. Stephen Colbert, trying to regain footing, attempts to pivot. So, Travis, how do you deal with attention from, let's say, unsolicited fans? The crowd giggles. Taylor smirks. Travis laughs, awkwardly. And then Taylor, cool as glass, adds. He's good at spotting the difference between admiration and ambition. Another shot. But this one's softer. A cleanup swing. Elegant. Still devastating. Still surgical. And once again, no names used. No fingers pointed. But everyone knows. Everyone. Because here's the real brilliance of that moment. Taylor didn't have to say Meghan's name. She didn't have to mention duchesses, Netflix deals, or ex-royals. She simply described her behavior and let the world connect the dots. And they did. Oh, did they ever? Let's pause for a second. Let's look at how the internet reacted in real time. Within 5 minutes of that line airing live, the hashtags were trending. Hashtag Swift clapback. Hashtag Crown versus character. Hashtag Taylor takedown. Hashtag Meghan uninvited. One viral TikTok of the moment. Filmed from a phone pointed at the TV, racked up 3.2 million views in under an hour. The top comment? She ended her with grace. Meghan better call her PR team now. And boy did she. Because as Taylor wrapped up her interview with Colbert, giving one last wave to the audience, Meghan was backstage making phone calls. Multiple witnesses say she called her team before even leaving the building. Frantic. Rushed. Snapping at someone on speakerphone. Get ahead of it. She's lying. This wasn't about me. She's trying to start a war. But it was too late. The war had already begun. And what about Travis? What was his reaction? Well, let's just say, he got the memo. After the segment, he was overheard asking a producer, did she actually try to get on stage? The answer? Yes. Yes, she did. And as the taping wrapped, and Taylor returned to the green room, security now blocking any hallway access Meghan could have used, Travis leaned in and whispered, you didn't have to go that hard. Taylor? She just smiled. Didn't I? But let's not forget, this wasn't the final blow. Because the mic drop line might have gone viral. But the real detonation was still ticking. That hot mic recording, it was making its way into the hands of exactly the people Meghan didn't want to hear it. And someone bold, maybe a little fed up with the charade, leaked it to page 6. The article posted 4 hours later. Meghan Markle caught on hot mic after Swift takedown. That bitch is gonna regret that. Within minutes, Taylor's fans flooded social media with one message. She didn't just chase the crown, she lost the kingdom. But Taylor? Taylor didn't respond. No tweet. No Instagram post. No team statement. Just one thing. A single image posted to her story. Black and white. A close-up of her holding a chess piece. The Queen. No caption. No context. Just the Queen. And the world understood. But Meghan wasn't done. She wasn't humiliated enough. Because her team had one last plan. One final grasp at framing the moment. A counter-narrative. An interview. One she wasn't supposed to do. One that would blow up in her face spectacularly. Because she thought the story could still be rewritten. That sympathy could be weaponized again. But she forgot. Taylor already wrote the ending. And the next chapter would expose everything. What happens when a woman obsessed with controlling the narrative suddenly loses the room? When the cameras stop rolling but the whispers get louder? When every hallway turns into a war zone? Every passing glance feels like judgment, and every assistant with a clipboard might be the one who leaked the tape. You crack. And Meghan Markle did exactly that. Not on stage. Not during the show. But backstage, where the lights were dimmer, but the humiliation hit harder. Because by the time Taylor's final words echoed through the studio and the audience roared their approval, Meghan had already unraveled. She just didn't know it was visible yet. Let's walk through the wreckage. The moment Taylor and Travis walked off set, hand in hand, smiling like they'd just cinched a Netflix special, Meghan was standing just around the corner near the green room corridor. Still in white. Still defiant. But shaking. Not outwardly, yet. Internally, she was boiling. Security had repositioned themselves, subtly blocking side entrances that Meghan had used earlier. Assistants who previously offered polite smiles were now avoiding eye contact. Someone in wardrobe whispered, "That was brutal." And then, Colbert passed her in the hallway. He didn't say anything. He smiled awkwardly, a brief nod, and walked on. Meghan? Frozen. Because she recognized it. That was the smile people give you when they don't want to get involved. When they know you've already lost. She turned, walked back to the green room she'd never been assigned, slammed the door. And finally, the mask cracked. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. That's what she yelled, according to two separate sources who heard it from the hallway. One of them, and in turn with no stake in the feud, texted a friend. She's having a full meltdown in there. Screaming, swearing, throwing stuff. Swear to God, I just heard glass. And they weren't exaggerating. Because Meghan's voice, usually tight, media-trained, syrupy, had completely changed. It was raw, raspy, uncontrolled. She wasn't playing the Duchess now. She was playing herself, and she was furious. How dare she ambush me like that? She knew I was here. This was a setup. They planned this. She's such a fake, America's sweetheart, my ass. I've been in this town longer than she has. She's not better than me. And then, most shockingly, you think I can't take a man from a pop star? Please. Yes, that was said, allegedly out loud, in a room with a cracked door. And that's when the tone changed. Because up until now, most of the crew had just felt awkward. Secondhand embarrassment. But that was ugly. That was personal. And several people started recording. Not video, just audio. Not to leak. Not yet. But to protect themselves. Because when someone starts raging that loudly, with that much venom, and you're nearby, you want proof that you weren't part of it. The door flew open. Meghan stormed out, phone pressed to her ear. Get Sunshine Sachs on the phone. Now. Sunshine Sachs, her crisis PR firm. The same firm that tried to rehab her image post-royal exit. She was calling in the cavalry. But it was too late. Because the narrative had already outpaced her. The crowd was posting their reactions. Clips of Taylor's quote were everywhere. Commentary from body language experts, lip readers, and even ex-royal staffers were flooding YouTube. And Meghan? Still in the building. Still trying to control the spin. She stormed into the hallway near makeup. Slapped her phone down on the counter. I want a statement drafted. Something powerful. Strong. About bullying. About standing up to misogyny. A junior assistant asked, do you want to include Taylor's name? Meghan glared. No. That's what she wants. We don't give her that power. Pause. But we imply it. Let that sink in. The entire night had imploded because of Meghan's need to be seen. And now, even in crisis, she still thought she could win the optics war. Still thought she could twist the backlash into sympathy. Still thought she could position herself as the wounded warrior, the misunderstood woman dragged down by another successful female. But the optics were no longer in her hands. Because the studio wasn't on her side. Colbert wasn't on her side. And Travis? Let's talk about Travis. After the taping, he rejoined Taylor in the green room. They hugged. He whispered something. She laughed. Not loud, quietly, almost smugly. He looked toward the hallway, toward the noise, and shook his head. She really did try it, huh? He said, according to someone 2 doors down. And Taylor? All she said was, she forgot the cameras weren't her audience anymore. Because that's the truth. Meghan had grown accustomed to documentary edits, carefully cropped photos, sit-down interviews with sympathetic hosts. She thought she could still perform the part of misunderstood Meghan while playing dirty behind the scenes. But live television doesn't come with editors. And Taylor? She doesn't play for pity. She plays for dominance. Back to Meghan, still backstage, still unraveling. She tried one last move. One last desperate attempt to rewrite the night. She grabbed her assistant's phone, opened Instagram, and started typing. A black square post. Caption. There's nothing more painful than being attacked by another woman when all you've ever done is try to support her. Some people weaponize kindness. Some of us survive it. She stared at the screen, thumb hovering, then deleted it. Too transparent. Too soon. Too obvious. Even she knew it. Instead, she walked out of the studio with her head high, but her eyes glassy. And everyone saw. They saw through it. They saw the desperation, the fury, the collapse, and worst of all, they saw that Taylor Swift hadn't even acknowledged her since the line. No direct comment. No confrontation. Just one line. Delivered cleanly. Casually. And it broke her. And here's the final gut punch. As Meghan stepped into her black SUV, attempting to preserve what little dignity she had left, a CBS intern, one of the ones she ignored earlier, walked past, and whispered to a friend. She thought she'd steal the moment. She ended up becoming the cautionary tale. Because now, she wasn't the woman who challenged Taylor Swift. She was the woman who got silenced by a single sentence. And the game was no longer about reaction. It was about retaliation. Because Taylor? She was just getting started. And the next move would be face-to-face. In a room without cameras, without scripts, and with nowhere to hide. Two women, one hallway, and no audience this time. No cue cards, no lighting director, no cheering fans, no makeup touch-ups or stylists with brushes. Just raw tension, blistering silence, and a confrontation that had been simmering for years, now finally boiling over. Because after the taping, Meghan didn't leave. She was supposed to. After the mic drop moment. After the viral quote. After the hot mic exposed her. After the entire studio staff pretended not to see her melt down in real time. After her team begged her to exit quietly. She was supposed to leave. But she didn't. Because she couldn't. Because somewhere, deep inside, Meghan Markle still believed there was a way to flip the script. Still believed she could walk into a room with Taylor Swift and take back the power. And Taylor? She was more than willing to let her try. Let's set the stage. It's 9:18 p.m. The taping has ended. The audience has filed out. Stephen Colbert has already gone home. Travis is back in the green room finishing his last round of interviews for social media clips. Taylor is quietly reapplying her lipstick in front of the mirror, unfazed, humming something from her Reputation era. And Meghan? She's standing outside Taylor's dressing room. Alone. One hand on the door, the other clutching her phone, breathing hard. And when she finally knocks, Taylor doesn't say anything at first, doesn't shout, doesn't open, just lets the knock hang there. And then finally, her voice, clear, cold, calm. Come in if you're going to say it to my face. And that's how it begins. The showdown no one saw, but everyone felt. Meghan walks in slow. Taylor doesn't turn around. Not immediately. She finishes applying her lipstick. Blots it. Only then does she turn. Eyes locked. Expression unreadable. Travis stands up instinctively, sensing the energy shift. Taylor raises one hand, stopping him. I got this. He nods, steps out. And for the first time in this entire saga, it's just the two of them. No buffers. No cameras. Just the Queen of Pop and the fallen Duchess, staring each other down like gunfighters in a Western. And Meghan starts soft. Fake soft. Look, I think we both know tonight got out of hand. Taylor raises an eyebrow. You mean you got out of hand? Meghan stiffens. Tries again. I was just trying to support Travis. By cornering him in a hallway? Taylor shoots back. I didn't corner him, Meghan says, her voice rising. We were talking. Two adults. It wasn't some move, Taylor. Taylor steps forward. Voice still quiet, but now sharpened like a knife. You wore white. You lingered in hallways. You flirted with a man who isn't yours and thought you were too famous to be called out. Tell me I'm wrong. Silence. A long one. And then Meghan breaks. Oh please, she scoffs. You think I'm threatened by you? You're just what? A pop star who dates football players now. Taylor tilts her head. Smiles. And you're what? A duchess without a country? A podcast without a platform? A brand without a buyer. The words hit. Hard. Meghan flinches. You think I don't know what you're doing? She snaps. You think that quote was clever? You called me out on live television. You tried to humiliate me. Taylor shrugs. You did that yourself. I came here in good faith. You came here because no one invites you anymore. Oof. That one cuts deeper than the rest. Because it's true. Meghan's calendar has been dry. Netflix deals falling apart. Spotify gone. Archwell's brand partnerships evaporating. No Vogue covers. No Met Gala invites. Just carefully staged pap walks and awkward smiles at fringe Hollywood functions. And now, even Colbert won't touch her with a 10-foot pole. She tries to pivot. I was friends with people in that building before you ever met Travis. Taylor doesn't blink. And somehow still the most uninvited person there. Silence again. Meghan's eyes narrow. You think this is about Travis? Taylor finally sits down. Crosses her legs. Leans back. It's not. Not really. Pause. It's about women like you. Women who use feminism as camouflage while stabbing other women in the back. Who claim victimhood while scheming in green rooms. Who flirt with other people's partners, then act shocked when someone calls it out. Meghan opens her mouth, then closes it. Because what can she say? What can she possibly say that undoes the clip of her saying, "That bitch is gonna regret that"? What undo button exists for all of this? Taylor continues, voice now steadier than ever. I kept my mouth shut for years. Years. Even when I knew you were leaking stuff. Even when you tried to cozy up to mutuals to get on my team. Even when you made that comment at the Met Gala. Meghan's eyes flash. So this was all about a dress comment? Taylor laughs. A soft, cold laugh. No, that was just the first breadcrumb. The rest? That was you thinking I wouldn't notice you circling my world like a vulture. I'm not a vulture. Taylor stands up. Now face to face. No, you're a cautionary tale. And then, she leans in. Just inches from Meghan's face. Voice low. Clear. You flirt with my man again. And I'll write a diss track with your name in the chorus. Full name. No metaphors. No Easter eggs. Just facts. And I promise you it'll chart. Meghan's lips part. But no sound comes out. Because there it is. The end. The real end. Not the viral quote. Not the trending hashtag. Not the internet fallout. But this. Two women in a quiet room. One victorious. One exposed. One walking out with her head held high. The other, reduced to the thing she fears most. Irrelevance. Taylor opens the door. Doesn't look back. Good night, Meghan. And walks away. Meghan stands alone in the middle of the room, frozen. Outmaneuvered. Outclassed. Outplayed. Because power? It isn't volume. It isn't royalty. It isn't fake smiles and photo ops. It's control. And tonight, Taylor Swift proved she still had all of it. But the next chapter would dive deeper. Because Meghan wasn't done licking her wounds. She was going to try to rewrite the narrative one last time. With stories from the past. Leaked emails. Alleged old connections. A twisted little plan that would reach all the way back to Hollywood's secret feud between two women who never publicly spoke each other's names, until now. What if the most dangerous move of the night wasn't the line on stage, but the entrance no one was supposed to notice? Because that's where this chapter begins. With a door opening quietly. Too quietly. The kind of entrance meant to look accidental. Effortless. Unthreatening. The kind that says, I'm just passing through. While every step is calculated, every glance measured, every breath rehearsed. That was Meghan Markle's entrance into the CBS building. And depending on who you ask, it was either harmless glamour or pure sabotage. So let me ask you something right now. Have you ever seen someone walk into a room and instantly bend the energy around them? Not with noise, not with shouting, but with posture, with timing, with the unspoken understanding that they expect to be noticed. That's how Meghan arrived. Not rushed, not flustered, calm, composed, smiling like she belonged there. Too comfortable for someone who wasn't on the guest list. Inside the lobby, security hesitated. Not because they recognized her credentials, but because they recognized her face. That's the strange currency of celebrity. You don't need a badge when people assume you must have one. A pause, a glance, a quiet, she's with us. And suddenly, the doors opened. That's how easy it was. Now picture the contrast. Taylor Swift had arrived earlier, discreetly. Hoodie, sunglasses, head down, surrounded by a team that moved like a well-trained unit. No wandering. No wandering eyes. No unnecessary interactions. Travis Kelce? Same thing. Jokes with staff. Friendly. Approachable. But grounded. A man who knew exactly why he was there. Meghan? She floated. That's the word multiple crew members later used. She floated from station to station. Never staying too long. Never committing to a single conversation. Laughing here. Nodding there. Complimenting someone's jacket. Asking someone's name, and then not using it. Always scanning. Always aware. Always looking past the person in front of her. Looking for someone else. And here's where the contradictions start piling up. Because according to one assistant producer, Meghan told them she was just popping by to say hello to Stephen Colbert. No appearance. No mic. No segment. Just a friendly visit. Sounds innocent, right? Except Colbert wasn't told. Except no meeting was scheduled. Except she walked straight past the Colbert green room and toward the hallway where Taylor and Travis were assigned. Coincidence? Maybe. But then came the outfit. Let's talk about the outfit. Because clothing at events like this is never accidental. Not at this level. Not with someone this media savvy. Meghan wore white. Not cream. Not ivory. White. A color that photographs loudly under studio lights. A color that pops against darker backdrops. a color historically associated with innocence, yet often used strategically to pull focus. Ask any stylist. White is not neutral. White is dominant. And the cut? Not formal. Not casual. Something in between. Low enough to catch attention. Structured enough to look deliberate. Soft enough to appear effortless. The message was subtle but unmistakable. I'm not here to fade into the background. And if you think that didn't register with Taylor Swift immediately, you don't understand Taylor Swift. Taylor notices everything. Every detail. Every shift in tone. Every unspoken challenge. Because this wasn't Taylor's first rodeo. She's been the other woman in tabloid narratives. She's been painted as insecure, jealous, dramatic. She's had her relationships dissected like crime scenes. She learned a long time ago that silence can be mistaken for weakness, and reaction can be weaponized. So when she heard Meghan was in the building, Taylor didn't storm out. She waited and watched. Meanwhile, Meghan kept moving. She stopped by wardrobe. She chatted with makeup. She asked a stagehand how long until rehearsal. Not because she needed the information, because she wanted to be seen asking. Because proximity is power in Hollywood. And Meghan knows that better than most. But here's the thing. The building wasn't reacting the way she expected. There were smiles, but they were tight. Nods, but no invitations. Pleasantries, but no warmth. And that's when Meghan shifted tactics. She started asking about Travis. Is he already mic'd? Do athletes get nervous before live tapings? He seems like such a natural on camera. At first, it sounded complimentary. But then it became pointed. And that's when the whispers began. One PA allegedly leaned to another and said, "Why is she asking so much about him?" Another replied, "She knows Taylor's here, right?" And someone else said something that would later come back to haunt the entire night. She's testing boundaries. Testing. That's the word. Because that's exactly what it looked like. Not a bold move. Not an obvious play. A test. A gauge of what she could get away with. How close she could stand. How long she could linger. Whether anyone would stop her. And no one did. Not yet. Because here's the uncomfortable truth about Hollywood. People don't intervene until something breaks. They wait. They watch. They hope it resolves itself. And in that waiting, lines get crossed. Now let's rewind to that hallway moment again. Because the more people talked about it after,